Yesterday, a very tragic incident came to the fore from Kashmir's Sopore. And I'm sure a lot of our viewers would already know about this when a 60-year-old civilian was killed in firing by who were later confirmed to be Lashkar-e-Toiba terrorists. Um, then a picture emerged in the wake, and the picture saw the deceased man's 3-year-old grandson who was sitting nearby and wailing. Now, this picture obviously was very evocative, but it sort of spread for a very different reason because the BJP spokesperson Sambit Patra posted that picture and then captioned it Pulitzer lovers and then put a couple of question marks. Now, that itself triggered a lot of very strong, intense reactions from different people across social media. We're going to discuss that on today's episode with Tushar Gupta. Tushar, first give me your take.
Karan, very unfortunate what happened in Kashmir yesterday, but that is the story of Kashmir. Innumerable, uncountable civilian deaths, innocent deaths on the hands of terrorism and whatever has been going on in the valley, aided by Pakistani-sponsored terrorists, the jihad, the idea of jihad that is prevalent there. So that's very unfortunate, but that's another day in the routine life of Kashmir. Now, what Sambit Patra, the BJP spokesperson, tweeted, what was the image that was circulating right after the incident happened, and he captioned it Pulitzer Prize winners or Pulitzer Prize winners or whatever. He said that. It was very crass in a way, of course. The first reaction anyone would have is that here is a 3-year-old boy. He's lying next to the corpse of his grandfather. And what can one really think of as the Pulitzer Prize? It comes across as very crass. It comes across as very crude in a way because one, you are objectifying the death of a person, of a civilian. On the other hand, you have a 3-year-old kid who will have this memory forever. So, of course, what Sambit Patra did, according to many, would be very futile, very crass, very crude, very needless in a way. But then, Karan, here's another perspective. In Kashmir, the children have always been the face of some or the other propaganda. It's not like this is the first time we've seen images like these coming out of Kashmir. I think what made Sambit Patra made that tweet was the image which recently won a Pulitzer Prize. And there you had a 6-year-old Kashmir girl with a pellet injury on her face. So children have always been the tool for a propaganda when it comes to Kashmir Valley. So what Sambit Patra did yesterday was not new. However, the backlash he received was probably because he was the first person from BJP to do so. Otherwise, we keep seeing this from certain media persons who were very quick to circulate the images of that Pulitzer girl, the 6-year-old girl who had pellet injuries on her face, and those injuries were attributed to the Indian forces. So this is the first time someone from the right wing has done it, and I think suddenly that's why all the hell has broken loose. All your Bollywood celebrities, some of them who have a habit of being very selectively critical of certain events, they were very quick to respond. Then there were certain journalists from either side of the border, both India and Pakistan. So they were all very quick to respond. But I think it has more to do with someone finally from the right wing picking up and saying, this is also a scene in Kashmir. This is also how children suffer, and they suffer at the hand of terrorism.
Right, Tushar, but I'm sure you must have watched the Sambit Patra interview with Rajdeep Sardesai, and they were going at it, and Sambit Patra was saying that he is the spokesperson of the largest political party in the world. That's what he said. So, coming from him, first of all, given by what he himself is saying, is rather strange, very crude and crass, like you've already said. But, just summing up what would be the thoughts of a lot of people is that you see that picture and the first thought that comes to you cannot be about the Pulitzer and the Khan Market gang and the Lutyens Delhi. But it doesn't that show that he is just so far deep in politicking that he couldn't even spare like the first moment, for instance, looking at that picture to have a more empathetic reaction. What do you think about that?
Karan, you're right. The reaction could have been different. What he asked was a very crude, crass question, but it was not a wrong question, I would say. See, if we go back a little, let's not talk just about Kashmir. Remember Shaheen Bagh? This was just earlier this year. Mothers with toddlers, some of them a month old, 2 months old, they were sitting there in the name of a pointless protest. One of the toddlers actually died, and the same media person who was yesterday questioning Sambit Patra was actually cheering these ladies on that, yes, get your kids outside. Yes, it's in the name of democracy. In Shaheen Bagh also, we saw 6, 7-year-old girls who cannot probably count all the alphabets, even all the 26 alphabets. And they were talking about, taking revenge from Amit Shah, taking revenge from Narendra Modi. And the same media persons, the same people who were yesterday critical of Sambit Patra's actions were criticizing him. So if it's okay for these media persons to cheer on the ladies who involve toddlers in Shaheen Bagh, how is it right for them yesterday to point out what Sambit Patra was doing? This is a bit of hypocrisy, if you honestly ask me. The other thing about Kashmir, now in Kashmir, we often see these images of young kids, they have these pellet injuries. Why do they have it? We never see this talk about the separatists, the elements, the anti-national, anti-social elements in the valley who push children forward in the face of danger, who push children forward as, to throw stones on the Indian forces. We never see that side being discussed in the media. And now yesterday when Sambit Patra picked that one image up, which showed a very alternate viewpoint against what we've all been, always given, that, oh, children are suffering in Kashmir, children are suffering because of the Indian forces in Kashmir, children are suffering because of Narendra Modi. Since 2014, this is the kind of narrative we've been given. Yesterday, Sambit Patra gave an alternate viewpoint that jihad is also making kids suffer. And it's not about the religion. The kid who died, the kid who survived, it's not about the religion of these kids, even if they are throwing stones, or are they a 3-year-old sitting next to the corpse of their grandfather. The point Sambit Patra was trying to make is that in the face of terrorism, all of these kids are suffering. It was a crass way of putting it out, but I don't think he was putting the wrong thing out.
Right, Tushar, you already touched upon this a little bit before, which is about the depiction in Kashmir and also the kind of images that come out of it. Connecting this to Sambit Patra's Pulitzer lovers reference, of course, he's probably talking about the Pulitzer Prizes given to 3 Indian photojournalists just this year. Could you speak about that a bit?
So yes, Karan, if you look at these images, and we'll put them on the screen for viewers, the images tell a very one-sided story in the aftermath of the revoking of Article 370, correct? They try to show that here are Kashmiris struggling for an Azad Kashmir, here are Kashmiris suffering the atrocities committed by the Indian armed forces under the rule of the Indian government. This is a very one-sided narrative that is being put out. And most of it is incorrect. We've seen for decades that Azad Kashmir, the idea of Azad Kashmir was going nowhere but only led to innocent deaths, innumerable of them. Number of families have been destroyed by this idea of Azad Kashmir, and those Pulitzer pictures were telling that one-sided story again. No one ever tried to depict that what Indian government was trying to do in Kashmir by revoking Article 370, by getting more progress there, more development there. Again, the Pulitzer Prize winners, they do not show the entire story. They do not show how the likes of Sayyid Ali Gilani, the separatists who've been the face of separatism in Kashmir, have used small kids, to peddle propaganda, to throw stones on the Indian armed forces. They never show this side of the story. So when Sambit Patra wanted the Pulitzers to take attention of yesterday's image, I think probably he wanted to make a point that this is the side of Kashmir you're missing out. And not just Kashmir. Terrorism, because of terrorism, kids have suffered across the world. It's not just Kashmir. We've seen the same in Yemen. We saw the same in Syria. We saw the same in Iraq. So it's all the same. The end thing is that children are not suffering at the hand of the government as much as they're suffering due to terrorism. And no one is ready to pick that viewpoint. Not even the Indian media, and obviously not the Pulitzer people who are giving away these awards.
Right, Tushar, just extending on that point, because of course, yesterday we saw that picture of the child, and then Sambit Patra responded, and then of course it went viral on social media. So you got a whole lot of responses with respect to that picture of a child. But like you've been saying, even previously, back in the day, you even referred to that, where they showed the picture of a girl who was hit by a pellet in the eye. And then there was commentary about that against the security forces. And we see that no matter what the cause, because in our modern times, you see the environmental cause, for instance, that is one space where children are repeatedly brought up, photographs taken of them, and then there's some sort of an emotional plea that is made. We saw that, like you pointed out, even during the protests in Delhi. Why is that children are being used as such propaganda tools in this age?
See, this is where the problem is. If Sambit Patra is wrong yesterday, and I personally feel he is, then all that left has been doing for the past, from Shaheen Bagh to Palestine to Syria to Iraq, everything is wrong. Children below 18 cannot be a part of the propaganda. They cannot be tools for propaganda. Now, what happened yesterday with that 3-year-old kid is going to stay with him for the rest of his life. Sambit Patra might say that when he grows up to become a 30-year-old, I would like to tell him this. I would like to tell him that. However true it might be, that memory, that disturbing memory will always be with him. Children who cannot think for themselves, they cannot be allowed to be made tools of propaganda. Now, yesterday only, some of the journalists actually went and questioned that 3-year-old boy. Imagine a 3-year-old boy being shoved down with mics and camera and being asked to what happened really with his grandfather. What does he say? And the same video is being circulated today to make a narrative against the Indian armed forces in Kashmir. Now, this type of propaganda cannot be allowed. It needs to be regulated in a way. There needs to be some sort of criminal charge for people who indulge in doing so. Just in Shaheen Bagh, as I stated earlier, a toddler lost his life. Now, what was the fault of that 2-month-old baby who was in a protest? He would probably never get the chance to understand. The protest was pointless. So, things like these, environmental causes against oil, causes for renewable energy, all the causes, good or bad, they cannot have kids as propaganda. These are things for adults to figure out amongst themselves. Of course, Sambit Patra was wrong in doing that, but he was just extending what the left has been doing for so long. Probably that's why he faced a lot of backlash. If Sambit Patra is wrong, which he is, whatever the left has been doing is wrong as well, and this needs to stop collectively. This is not about just one Sambit Patra or one Kashmir. This is about a very greater question about humanity as to how do we want to really go about with our kids. Do we really want to exploit them for, narratives and media debates or primetime shows and things like that?
Thanks for your insights, Tushar.
Thanks, Karan. We at Swarajya are working towards creating more exclusive videos, podcasts, and analysis for our Swarajya Patreon subscribers. We've added a link in that description, and you can go ahead and support us for as little as $4.99 on a monthly basis. We look forward to your support. Keep watching, keep supporting Swarajya.